Does Drea de Matteo age like at all? She looks like she's been pulled out of her Sons of Anarchy role and just put straight into this. I'm just going to take a moment to give an absolute shout out to the boys over at the Beardy Bros Show. I'm going to put a link to them down below. They recently asked me to collaborate with them and join them on their video. I've done that. It was great. I had a lot of fun doing it. They're great guys reviewing games, movies, the works, and they like a little drink here and there. As I would say, check them out, stay tipsy, and go show the love. And if you're new here for me, hit subscribe. That'd be awesome. Now on with the review. Safe Room. Now Safe Room is a new home invasion movie that's came out. It doesn't stray too far from the kind of tried and tested formula of home invasion movies, but it throws in a few interesting elements as we go on. So the main people we're following here is Lila and Ian, a mother and son, moved into a new property following the passing of her husband, his father. And the main focus of this movie seems to be the relationship between the mother and son, because they're both still dealing with the passing of their husband or father. But Ian has got high functioning autism, which also, looking up after the movie, Nick Sanchez, who plays him, also does. So the movie isn't so much more about surviving what's going on, it's also coping with it, and this mum is trying to deal with not only the home invasion but her son's mental well-being throughout the entire movie. Now it did look a little bit IKEA showroom clean for me at the start, which is explained since they're just moved in, so I'll give them a wee pass on that one. But moving on, the son is very reminiscent of, I forget his name, but you know the main character in Atypical, just the way his mannerisms, the way he talks. They even love the Arctic as well, but it was a really refreshing to see this portrayal because it wasn't patronising, both in his own dialogue, his own actions, and even the mum talking to Ian. She was not patronising to him at all, even whilst all this was going on. And I think that was a very slippery slope that they could have easily edged onto and just ruined the movie, I think, and certainly done a disservice here. But no, Ian gets propped up really well. The actor Nick Sanchez absolutely blows it out of the park with this. So of course somebody gets interested in the house and the invasion begins. And for the home invasion, there's really a couple of people here. We've got Drea de Matteo, as I mentioned earlier, and we've got a character, Dominique. I really enjoyed what they done with these characters. I really appreciate when there's kind of villains or antagonists in a movie, and even they have their own infighting, and that's definitely on display in this one. So the mum, the son, they run into the titular safe room of this movie, and they've got kind of cameras throughout the house, and they ain't leaving. They ain't opening the door for anybody. Home invaders, they're not leaving until this has been dealt with, because the son Ian, he's got a camera set up at his house and he kind of just looks out the window, he enjoys the scenery. He accidentally recorded a crime taking place. They're here for that footage and the witnesses. What I think just worked for me and what kept me in was the negotiating between the antagonists, you know, the home invaders, and the mum, and how they would try and talk their way out of the situation, whilst you really knew that it wasn't going to work. They're not getting out of the situation. So the acting was phenomenal, I thought, in this. The fact they had that infighting really brought them out, and it showed their dynamic and their own kind of hierarchy. And part of that conflict, that internal between the home invaders, is that Dominic is just there to rob homes. That's all he does. However, Rocco, she takes things a little bit more physically. She is okay to get her hands dirty and bloody, and she will kill and murder. So the fact that he's now involved in this is out with his depth, and he just wants to leave. And that was very captivating to see how that was going to be negotiated throughout the movie. Whilst these two are in the house, pitching outside the door, making sure that they're not leaving, they're talking about the boss. They're talking about their higher up, who they're afraid of. That kind of line of order. It adds a new layer to it, a new depth that, oh, the two we're watching here aren't the worst of the worst. There is worse that could be on its way. Spoiler, it kind of is on its way, but that's later. All of the logical attempts as well to get out of this situation, be it through technology, the things they say or try and negotiate, or physically, are displayed here. Or if they're not, there's a logical reason why they're not done. You know, the movie will explain it. Not overly, but it does at least touch on them exploring all the options and really thinking outside the box. And Ian is a huge fan of technology. So of course he can try and get into security cameras or try and fix certain things in the home because they've just moved in. Not everything's up and running yet. And whilst Lila, she's dealing with both his mental headspace and these people that are outside the front door. I thought she'd done an absolutely kick-ass performance here. This independent mother who's also instilling independence on her son, who she very easily could have just wrapped up in cotton wool and made sure he was fine. It's very apparent throughout. The home invaders, they don't have a plan. They don't know what to do, and to be fair, neither do the family. So we see both sides of the door and trying to work out what their next steps are going to be. It's messy, not in its dialogue, not in its execution. What these characters are doing is just a messy job. I do have some questions though, but that leads me into, very easily, I have questions. Now if you don't know, this is the part where it's going to be full of spoilers, and I'm just going to talk about a few things that stood out to me that I just need to ask. They're not wanting to be on camera. The whole point of this movie is that they're on film and they're trying to get back the camera so the footage is gone. He says this into a camera in the house without a moment's thought that that could also be recorded, in which case there's then more evidence of him in the house. Why? Surely you wouldn't want to be on the camera. Also, they call the police at one point. The mother is fighting with one of the home invaders at this point, physically throwing down. She calls the police. Clearly the police answer the phone, in which case they hear the fight and they hear the scuffing going on. The home invader takes the phone, says that everything's fine, it was a false alarm, and then instead of hanging up, immediately starts just hitting the phone off the floor. I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure on the other side of the phone, you're going to still hear the fighting going on. Here's someone, yeah, sure, say it's fine, but then the phone starts getting smacked around a few times. Because when the police do arrive later, I thought they might have been doing a wee bluff and they were saying, yeah, we know everything's fine, let's see what's happening anyway, it's just a welfare check. No. She genuinely believes everything's fine from that phone call. How did the police not suspect anything? And very lastly is Dominique, the kind of male of the two home invaders for most of the movie. He of course wants to walk away. He's conflicted in what they're doing because it's going too far. What he thought was a robbery turns out not to be. So he says to the mum in the safe room that he's not a snitch and he will not snitch. It's very clear on this. Yet when he talks to his partner, who is all for the job and she will do anything by any means necessary, which has been demonstrated at this point, he tells her about going to the police, or at least walking away from it. He doesn't lean into the whole not a snitch thing. Now, I've never robbed a home before, but if I had to convince one of the two parties that I wasn't a snitch, it's probably the one that I've just seen kill somebody. It is the home invasion, which is done very well, and a lot of interesting moments, scenes and dialogue is within this. But then once that's resolved, when we get to the end of the movie, it doesn't feel like they're any further along. You know, there's not any progression to these characters. You know, it doesn't feel like they'd be able to wrap up a good ending. There's not a solid arc in this movie. You know, nothing's set up that's then got the full arc of these characters. Yes, they're dealing with the fact that their dad has just recently passed away, but there's not anything moving these characters into the next stage of their life or anything they've learned from the home invasion. Now, with everything I've just said, whether you've listened to the spoilers or not, if you enjoy a home invasion, 100%. If you've got time for this movie, give it a watch. It's not going to blow your socks off. It's not absolutely out there an astounding 10 out of 10, but it'll pass the time. It does some things quite interesting, and it tries to change up the formula, but still being believable in its execution. And I'll give a hats off to that. Look, that was just some of my thoughts on Safe Room. Have you seen it? If you have, let me know what you thought down below. Do we agree or disagree? Let's have a chat about it. And if you are new here, do hit subscribe, but I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.